podcasting is in a very interesting time because from a cultural standpoint, many people are consuming podcasts, but the way the term is used isn't necessarily its actual definition. The actual definition of a podcast can be video or audio, but it's something that is on an RSS feed, right? And that's a very technical term, and the point is, I don't need you to necessarily know that. It's more about that as a culture, we've taken that term and applied it to anything, right? And so now people are quote unquote uploading podcasts to YouTube. When in reality it's just a YouTube video, right? But it's something that they intended as a podcast, and now they're putting it on YouTube, right? And so forth. And perhaps other video platforms, Vimeo or whatever else they might be able to think of. But the point being, podcasting ultimately is expanding, and the way, quote unquote, podcasts, right? I'm going to use the loose term of it, continue on, is both in audio form and video form. And a lot more emphasis from podcast shows is being put into the video because that can help grow audiences, right? Certainly Instagram Reels, TikTok, and all these different things, having video can be socialed out and promoted and so forth. Plus on the video side, as I said, you can upload the full episode to all those platforms, the primary one being YouTube. And that raises a very interesting question because no different than when now as a video editor, there's multiple formats I have to edit for, meaning a lot of times I'll have to edit something horizontal, but then for social media, I'll have to have that same video and create a vertical version of it. Well, that's two completely different formats, and so there's different philosophies on how to do that, right? And so as far as the podcast is concerned, ultimately, video and audio, by its very nature, are two different mediums, right? And that's something that I don't think a lot of podcasters themselves really consider, right? I mean, there's the whole fact of monetization. The two are monetized completely different. How they are put together is completely different too. Because, on the audio side, there's so many things you can do. You could essentially make a cut every second if you wanted to, and it's not jarring, or it doesn't have to be if you do it correctly, right? And it gives you a lot more leeway and freedom with the performance of, the speakers and so forth to be able to finesse that and get rid of ums and even just stutters and things like that. Whereas on the video side, that becomes a little harder because in order to essentially mask that, you would have to cut. Now, you can cut to another camera, which is generally what would happen. But if you're literally making an edit every few seconds, or if you need to just make the tiniest of edits and it's 10 edits within 10 seconds, that's really jarring, right? So that would then require you to overlay what we call B-roll, which is, if we're talking about statistics or something like that, then, you would bring in a picture of those statistics and that would mask that edit. And so ultimately, you can get two different products, right? Now, of course, in theory, you can edit the podcast visually and have it be the same for audio. And that's what I do overall. I film my episodes, right? I record the audio and I, shoot the video. I marry the two, and then I export out the video, and then I export out the audio and upload those to separate platforms as needed, right? But for me, I don't do any editing. It's live to tape sort of a thing, and so forth. And that is fine for me because I understand my workflow in that way, right? And yes, would I love to, have editing and so forth? Yeah, but that's more time and effort on my part. Or if I wanted to get somebody because I didn't want to do it myself, then that requires a cost, right? And that's kind of what this is all about, is a lot of people want the creme de la creme, let's say, but they don't understand these nuances of the different mediums, right? And so in theory, like especially when it comes to podcasts, most podcasts that we consider, they're interview style, right? And there's a whole plethora of other podcasts like narrative dramas, certainly something like this, more docuseries, true crime being one of the biggest in that and stuff like that. All those exist, but those are much more hard to produce. The ones that you see more day in, day out are the interview style ones, right? And, there's not really a right and wrong way, but these are things to consider, because if you have a guest that's a stutterer and something like that, then, in order for it to be the same with the video as well as the audio, you're going to have to live with some of those, let's say imperfections, right? And just have it be that way, right? And so, if you're literally, if your goal is to have it be the same, you're going to have to make those concessions, because a video is going to dictate some concessions and audio is going to dictate some concessions as well. So that's important to note. And again, it's not just, it's all the same, right? Because even like editing audio, even within a video program, still requires a lot of effort and stuff like that. And likewise, for an hour interview show, right, there could be a lot of cuts just in the video end. Statistically, like a lot of the shows that I work on just purely in audio can be anywhere from 400 to 1,000 cuts for an hour show, right? That's a lot. And they all have to be finessed to make it seem seamless and not jarring, right? That's just for the audio. Now, again, that number, if I was dictated by video, could lessen, but then, the cuts that I'm making for the video side are, in a sense, different than the cuts required for the audio. And so, you've already got hundreds of audio edits. Now you got to worry about the video edits as well. So the point being that it's not just a straightforward, thing of like, okay, I'll cut it together and we have the video, we have the audio, and it's good to go. I think people underestimate the effort that it does take from the editing perspective. And likewise, too, once you post it, right, they're two different mediums in that way. And I think, yes, it is nice to have a show be available to, many people in many different platforms. But that means you also have to kind of maintain them, right? And that requires effort in and of itself. And even each platform, like, we can take anecdotally, TikTok is different than Instagram. And so the way one goes about that should reflect more of the platform specifics. Now, you could turn around and say to me, criticize, like, I don't do that. And no, I don't. Because, I have to assess, okay, at the stage I'm at, what's the effort that I can put in, and what are the results that I can hope to get, right? So I take those concessions knowing the pitfalls, right, and the shortcomings of it, and never being upset at myself for that, right? And slowly but surely, these things have grown over time, and I love communicating with the people that I have, as far as that I've engaged with the episodes and so forth. So that really is fun for me. And that makes it worth it in the end, you know? But I think, you know, that's another key point is sometimes you just have to start. You have to be in a position where you can start and just get something going, right? And sometimes it's better to start small and just have it be an audio podcast and grow into video, or, you know, maybe you want to do audio and video, and that's fine too, knowing like that you're going to be spread a little bit thin, so you have to kind of be able to manage it. And then as things grow for you, right, that's the beauty of all of this. Like, just because you start off one way doesn't mean that's the way you finish, right? The whole point in life in general, right, is to evolve and grow and so forth. So that's the beauty, and that can happen. But you know, you have to take the time, the effort, and potentially the money to be able to do that. And that's why knowing the nuances of just what it requires to produce a video podcast versus an audio podcast, you know, is worthwhile. And, you know, it can be daunting when you see the top level podcasters out there with, you know, studios. Like, I mean, a lot, like, the thing of it is, it's a lot of like dudes, you know, white dudes with successful podcasts, and, you know, they now have studios and so forth, and it looks glossy, but that comes at a great cost. And, you know, it's unfortunate because, like, essentially they all uplift each other, and that sort of community isn't as readily available to others, but it could be, right? And it's something that could happen. It's just in many ways, you know, I say this often, especially like just any artist on an indie level, it's like we're just trying to get through our day. And so the notion of like maintenance tasks, right? So the maintenance task could be like, if you've committed to a podcast, the maintenance task is just getting it out there, right? And doing it. A growth task is something that will elevate you to the next level. And so, you know, finding people to form a community and build with, that could be considered a growth task, but it's like, how do you fit that in when your day's already stacked, right? So all of this is just to make you aware of all the things that go into podcasts, but, you know, these are the specifics of that, but certainly just even on a basic level, the ideas apply to many, many aspects of creativity and entrepreneurship and so forth. So, you know, just stuff to consider as you know, venture off in your journey of podcasting, whether you're just beginning or you're mid-journey, whatever. Just wanted to kind of highlight that for you. And as always, if you have any questions or thoughts of your own, please share them down below in the comments section, or hit me up on social media at Svitek. Would love to chat with you and connect on ideas. So thank you so much. I appreciate you. I hope to see you next time.